Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5-Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Hello there, Rush Nation. Here we are. It's back with another week, and we're back with the Fantasy Football Bible Part 1. Apologies for the sort of absence over the past week or so. Combination of some real life stuff, and then unfortunately coming down with a virus, which I'm fine. Appreciate a lot of the well wishes and things that came through, but yeah, it's been a difficult week and a bit. So, but that's all behind us. We're back. We're recording the flagship show tonight, which is great. And so we are really just zoning in now for week 5 and making sure that we've got everything in place ready to be successful for week 5. So I'm going to jump straight into this. We're going to cover off the Thursday night game, the international game, and then the slate games, early slate games for this week, for week 5. Don't forget 4 teams on bye, so make sure you check your buys. But let's dig straight into it. So tonight's game is the Falcons versus the Buccaneers. Falcons are favored by 2 points, and the over-under set at 43.5. Obviously, I'm a Buccaneers fan, so I've got to be a bit careful in what I say here, but I don't necessarily agree that the Falcons are favourites going into this. Yes, they've been pretty good on defense, and they've made some really big plays. They scored a special teams touchdown, defensive touchdown last week, and that's definitely something that will go in their favour. And they have quite a strong pass rush, which against that potentially porous Bucs offensive line will come into play. But we know the Bucs can score points, and we know that the Falcons have struggled on points. And some of the matchups, in particular Drake London and Darnell Mooney. I mean, Darnell Mooney's up against Zion McCullum, who is PFF's highest graded quarterback going into week 5. So we're looking at that matchup thinking like, I don't really see. We know that the Buccaneers are really good at stopping the run and Bijan Robinson. So other than Kyle Pitts, and this being a favorable matchup for him, I don't really see where the strong points are. So that's why I'm a bit dubious on the favorite tag here. Over under 43 feels low. I feel like that the over will be hit here. But let's get straight into it. I've got some of my rankings up here on the screen. Let's go with the quarterbacks in this one. And I have Baker Mayfield set at QB9, as you can see on the screen this week. Kirk Cousins all the way down at 20. I think he's right for turnovers in this game. And I just don't think he's going to throw for a big bunch of yards. I think I expect him to maybe be a little bit lower down as a result. Moving on to the running back. So I actually have Bijan Robinson down at RB15. I know he's a PPR weapon. And if this was straight PPR, I would probably have him a little bit higher, but I'm ranking him on half-point PPR. I just think there's better options this week. Obviously, a lot of this might depend on injury as well. So there's part of that I need to be a little bit careful of because I've got a couple of players above him, like Joe Mixon, Brian Robinson, who are questionable. So I'll see what some of the details are. But yeah, I think for me, Bijan Robinson, it's very hard to put it in an RB1 performance against the Buccaneers. And I think that kind of gets excluded a little bit despite the talent. I have the running back tandem of Bucky Irving and Rachaad White firmly in sort of edge of RB2 territory. Bucky Irving at 23, Rachaad White at 27. Rachaad White will be the PPR monster, and Bucky Irving will get the late carries in the second half and boost the numbers that way. And the way I have this game script is I think the Buccaneers will get ahead, and I think they'll manage it a bit more with the run this week, and I think those carries will go to Bucky Irving, which is why I have Bucky Irving as a little bit as a favourite over Rachaad White this week, but both are definitely startable. Let's talk about the wide receivers here. I have Chris Godwin as wide receiver 4, Mike Evans as wide receiver 10. I think both of these will be used heavily and often, and I just think with the options that are available to Atlanta, I have them significantly lower. Drake London is at wide receiver 40. I just don't see him finishing higher than that. He has not put in a sterling performance all season. I think he's got a tough gig against Jamal Dean. I don't like that matchup for him. And the way that Cousins is throwing the football right now, I'm not entirely convinced. I have Ray McLeod at 45. Wouldn't shock me if Ray McLeod would be the highest receiver in this game out of the slot. I think that's where they will probably get the most joy. Darnell Mooney all the way down at 51. I look at the tight ends in this game, and I have to say this is a make or break week for Kyle Pitts owners. I actually have him at 12, but it wouldn't shock me that he was significantly higher than that. I just think for me, this is a week where Kyle Pitts can really exploit going over the middle and should see a high amount of volume. It's a good matchup with him. Tampa do like to give away points to tight ends. Look at Dallas Goedert last week, for example, when they had no success in the air, it all went to Dallas Goedert. And you can argue, oh, well, it's the receivers, we're injured and all this, but effectively, Tampa do like to give away points to tight ends, and I think that they're likely to do it in this scenario again. If it doesn't happen for Kyle Pitts this week, it's not going to happen at any point, really. That's my kind of concern. So for me, this is a real sort of point to in a redraft season where I'd almost say if he does not finish in the top 12 this week, he could be classed as droppable. I have K. Dalton at 14. I actually think he is coming along nicely and starting to get more work in this game, especially with Jalen McMillan kind of being a bit injured as well. Yeah, it plays nicely there. As for the defenses here, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 11. I have Atlanta at 22. I just think the Bucs will get some turnovers in this game. I have Young Hoku at 5. And then I also have Chase McLaughlin at 8. So both the kickers here are startable. Moving on to the international game here in London. So we've got the Vikings who are favored by 2.5 points versus the Jets. And the over-under set of 40, which, considering how many points the Vikings have set up, that is quite an interesting line. And one I'll be watching very closely. I actually don't think that's a bad line. If that line does come out to be true, then we're in for some trouble here, fans in the UK. Might not be the most exciting game that will be scheduled to see at any point this season. Where I'm at with the quarterbacks in this one, I have got Aaron Rodgers at quarterback 14. Sam Darnold is all the way down at 24 for me. I think this is a game that's ripe for him to potentially give away some turnovers. I think this Jets D plays really well, matches up really well against Minnesota. You look at the way that they play D, the way that they have those safeties and those corners. I think they're going to contain Jordan Addison especially, and you'll see why in that ranking. And then I think as well, you look at who else they've got in terms of coverage. Justin Jefferson's the X factor in this game. If he has a big game, I can see Minnesota winning it. I think if the Jets D can really contain, they get pressure on Darnold early, they get him to commit turnovers, and then they're able to contain Jefferson, I think that the Jets can win this game. There is a pathway to them. They look definitely the more suited in this game, even though the line does have the Vikings as favorite, but it's not a big line. So it's something to definitely consider there. As we get into the running backs here, I've been really disappointed with the usage of Breece Hall, and it's making me question what I think about. I don't have many nice things to say about Nathaniel Hackett. I don't think he's this great offensive genius that he is sort of being compared to be, and as a result, I have Breece Hall at 13, and I get that they have Braden Allen, and they can use Braden Allen, who I have all the way down at 32. But having said that, Breece Hall is a player who keeps this team afloat, and I'm really concerned that he is all the way down at 13, and that usage is continuing to plummet week by week. And I don't know if it's an injury. I'd like to get a bit more clarity. So I've got him down at 13. I'm conservative on him, but you have to start him. Aaron Jones for me is running back 5 this week. Ty Chandler's all the way down at 45. Aaron Jones has really cemented his place as the leading receiver here. Now, I do have Justin Jefferson as my wide receiver 5 this week. I do think that he will be able to have an impact on this game, but I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't meet that expectation. So it's something to keep an eye on, but of course you're going to start Justin Jefferson. I have Garrett Wilson all the way down at 27. He is just not getting the volume that is making him a huge play in fantasy football right now. So he is a flex play, and that is where I have him. I don't really feel comfortable putting him much higher than that. And it's a situation that if they end up trading for Davante Adams, he's going to plummet all the way down my rankings. So Alan Lazard is at wide receiver 44. Now, his fantasy value will die if Davante Adams does move across there. But at this point, that's not going to happen this week. So Alan Lazard is comfortably there in the ranks for me. When I look at Jordan Addison, I've got him all the way down at wide receiver 55, and some people are going to be surprised. I'm going to link to if it's out at the point of sending this out, my wide receiver cornerback column I wrote for Fantasy Pros, and he has a terrible matchup against Sauce Gardner. I just don't see him utilizing that option this week. And I think he's going to find it really, really difficult. And the same goes for Jalen Nailor, who's all the way down at 84. So really, for me, the starts in this game are only Alan Lazard, Garrett Wilson as flex plays. Justin Jefferson's really the only must start for me. The practice window's open for TJ Hawkinson. I don't think they're going to risk him this week. So really the only tight end of note here is Tyler Conklin. He is going to be my tight end 13 coming into this week as it stands right now at time of recording. And then as for the defense, I've got the Jets all the way up at 6. I've got the Minnesota Vikings at a reasonable place. I've got them at 7. So I've got both of them effectively back to back. I think both will make impacts on this game. That Brian Flores defense in particular has been really nasty. And that's both these defensive coordinators are going to contribute to the over-under only being 40. As for the kickers, I imagine you probably don't have either kicker, but Will Reichard is at 21 and Greg Zuerlein is at 23. Moving on now to the 6 o'clock window here in the UK, the 1 o'clock window over in America. And there are 6 games in this window. These are the 6 I'm going to preview. And then we're going to kick out, and then we're going to end this, and I'm going to do the rest tomorrow, where there'll be an influx of information as well. So let's start with Bears v Panthers. Panthers are favored. Bears are favored. I would say Panthers are favored. They're not going to be favorites in many games this season. The Bears are favored by 4 points. The over-under set 41, so another low-scoring game here. And I think that's justified. Both defenses are, I'd say both offenses aren't really established and elite here. And that's going to contribute to the low ranking here of points. And I think as a result, I think the way I see this game is the D of Chicago definitely keep them in there, and Caleb Williams is making just enough plays. But I'll be honest with you, I'm just not happy with Shane Waldron. And I think there's something that has to be done there because his play calling is unimaginative. And I'll talk more about that on the flagship show tonight, because I'm deeply concerned at his play calling and what he's doing for this offense. I don't think he gives Caleb Williams the best chance to win. On the flip side, I look at Carolina. They're definitely better with Andy Dalton. They've started to run the football a bit better, which is good news. But unfortunately, they just give away. There's just a lack of discipline, a lack of weapons on this team. I don't think Jonathan Brooks is going to be ready for this game. And so as a result, we're just going to have to crack on with what we've got. So I think the Bears will get in front and stay in front. I don't think it's going to be a glamour match. I don't think it's going to be anything that anyone will be overly excited about watching frequently or wanting to rewatch this more than once in particular. But it will be should be a win for the Bears. I'd be surprised if they don't win it before they jump on the plane to London for next week. I've got Dalton at quarterback 16 and Caleb Williams at quarterback 19. I do think Dalton is going to throw some picks in this game. And especially if they're going to target Jalen Johnson, then I think that's a huge mistake. I think they can get some joy from Tyreek Stevenson, who's matched up against Deontay Johnson. That should be a really good matchup for them to exploit. But if they start using Xavier Legette and they've got Jalen Johnson on him, that could be a really, really bad day at the office for the Carolina Panthers. We go with the running backs in this game. And DeAndre Swift, who I've been critical of, has been better. He was better last week. I actually have him at 14 this week. I have Chuba Hubbard at 10. I think they're running the ball quite well, and I think it's a good matchup for the Carolina Panthers to run the football. And I think they'll have periods where they'll be in this game and get the success in running the football. Moving on to the wide receivers here, Deontay Johnson is my wide receiver 6 this week. Because of that matchup, I think he's got a brilliant matchup and he can exploit it. He is questionable at time of recording, so we'll have to see what happens there. DJ Moore is my wide receiver 12 this week. I am concerned about the Shane Waldron experience, though. Keenan Allen is all the way down at 48. Ramon Duzay 53. Xavier Legette is all the way down at 57. I know he scored last week and he's been impactful, but I am a bit concerned about that matchup against Jalen Johnson, who has been the NFL's best corner statistically so far this season. Moving on to the tight ends, I've got Kmet at 19, Tommy Tremble at 24. for this week. And then moving on to the DSTs, I do think there's some turnovers here. So I have the Bears here at 3. I think that's going to they've been really, really good this season, that Bears D, and have really been coached up quite well. The Carolina Panthers I have down at 25. They're not turning over the football Bears, and that's why they're winning games. I look at the kickers here, and there's not really too much to shout here. Cairo Santos is kicker 13, so he's someone that potentially could start Eddie Pinheiro all the way down at kicker 25. Moving on to the next game we've got here is the Bengals versus the Ravens. Ravens are favored by 2.5 points in this one, especially after their blockbuster win against the Bills. The over-under here, much healthier, 49. This is going to be a great game, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this one turns out. Lamar Jackson is my quarterback 1 this week. I think it's prime for him to put in a really, really good performance. And Joe Burrow is quarterback 7. You're definitely starting these this week. Derrick Henry's been phenomenal for the Baltimore Ravens the last few weeks, and he is my running back 1 this week. So he is right up there taking advantage of this one. As for the Bengals running backs here, I've got Zach Moss all the way down at 26 and Chase Brown at 28 there in effectively a split time role. So both of them are there. Moving on to the wide receivers here, and I have Jamar Chase down at wide receiver 8, Higgins at wide receiver 16, Zay Flowers at wide receiver 31. They're the 3 in this game. I think Baltimore, Rashard Bateman could be a potential flex play this week, so someone definitely of interest and someone to definitely keep an eye on. As for the defenses here, this is definitely a game not for the defenses, so stay well clear. With the Baltimore Ravens at 13, and Cincinnati Bengals I have ranked dead last at 28 this week for DSTs. And then looking at the kickers, Evan McPherson's at 6, Justin Tucker is at 9 this week, so both highly startable as per usual. Moving on to the next game. It's Texans v. Bills. This is a really close game. Bills are favored by 1 point, over under 47.5. The Texans have done really well to get into the situation they're in, winning football games. Whilst I don't think they're necessarily offensively at the same level they were last season, they have been scraping by with the wins. And the same with the Bills in that regard, where they're in this transition period, 3-0 before they got wiped out on Monday night Sunday night against the Ravens. And I think those lines are pretty good. It's showing you it's a pretty even match, and I think it's really going to come down to who is going to be the team that really grapples this game and really sort of takes control. I think you're going to see a lot of short yardage stuff from Josh Allen, and I think it's all going to come down to discipline of the Texans. They've given away the most penalties in the NFL. That offensive line in particular, Larry Tunsil, I think, has given away 11 penalties this season. So I think some discipline there. They're not going to be able to get away with that like they have done in previous weeks, especially last week and the week before. So I think there's going to have to be some tightening there from the Texans. I think that those margins really could be what comes into this, as well as also any return, special teams plays are going to be really, really important. Who has the time of possession in this game and makes the most of it is going to be the team that will come out on top. And this could come down to the last drive. So both these quarterbacks highly startable. You don't need me to tell you that. Josh Allen at 6, CJ Stroud at 12. We're still waiting on the health of Joe Mixon. I currently have him in my rankings. I think this week looks like the week that he will return. And if he does, he's at RB7. James Cook at RB11 for me this week. I think Nico Collins has an outstanding matchup this week. He is my RB1, my wide receiver 1 overall this week, and he is one I feel pretty confident will have a big week. Stephon Diggs is all the way down at 23. I think he's got a better matchup than Tank Dell, so I like him as a start play this option this week. Khalil Shakir has been the main threat in this offense. He is at 32. Tank Dell's all the way down at 54. I wouldn't start him this week. I don't think this is a good matchup for him. He has got really tight coverage this week, and it's just not a matchup I'd be looking for him to get points out of, and I write about that in the wide receiver cornerback column. I'm at the point now where I've pretty much given up on Mark Andrews. I have Mark Andrews all the way down at 29. So actually, Isaiah Likely's the tight end I've got ranked for Baltimore. He's my tight end 9 this week. Dalton Kincaid is right next to him at tight end 10. Sorry, I just talked about Baltimore with Likely. I think I meant to talk about him a second ago. I missed off randomly the tight ends when I talked about Baltimore. So yeah, I'll talk about that quickly. I'm so sorry. Isaiah Likely 9, and then I forgot about Mike Gesicki's all the way down to 20. Let's talk about the actual game. I talked about Dalton Kincaid. I guess good Monday night was such a good game. It's still in my mind. For me, I'm not sure that I'm trusting the tight ends of Houston at any point in the season. So Dalton Schultz all the way down at 23. You can ignore him, as I'm sure you have been all season. And then going into the DSTs, I'm probably swerving both of these because of the high over-under. Buffalo Bills are at 20 and the Houston Texans at 24. So definitely not starting either of those. But these kickers are definitely highly startable. Kyrie Fairbairn at 4 and Tyler Bass at 10. Both of those highly startable this week. Moving on to the next game on the bill, Jags Colts divisional affair. Jags are favored by 2.5 points, even though they're 0-4, and the over-under is set at 46. I don't get that. I don't know what to say. I don't get that. I have no trust for the Jacksonville Jaguars right now. I actually think they'll lose this game. I think the Colts, for starters, they've got the defense, if nothing else. I know offense has been a bit tricky, but they look good with Flacco. Michael Pittman started to appear in the box score, which is kind of what we've all been waiting to see all season long. I just don't trust Trevor Lawrence right now. I don't. He's lost his last 8 or 9 starts. I just don't. I don't trust the Jags to come out with a win here. I really don't. So I'm kind of out on them. Having said that, I have Trevor Lawrence at 12. I think there's a lot of quarterbacks with a lot of tricky matchups, and I think this is a tricky matchup, but I think it's a slightly better matchup than other tricky matchups. I have Richardson in at 13 currently, just with that rushing floor. If he doesn't go, I will bring in Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco is probably going to be around the Andy Dalton quarterback 16 range is kind of where I think he will be. Won't put him in the exact same spot, but I think it'd be a match for him to exploit. Looking at the running backs here, and I don't think Jonathan Taylor is going to go. He is currently out of my rankings. So Trey Sermon is in. He is in at 18, and then Travis Etienne is also questionable. I do expect him to go. I have him at 20 with Tank Bigsby, who's also questionable at 36. There's a lot of questions here around the run game in this one. I think whoever the starting running backs are in this game, you can start them, but I wouldn't expect necessarily that running back 1 performance from any of them. I think if Taylor is good to go, then I will change my opinion. I'd probably slot him at the bottom end of that RB1 line, given how much of an offensive threat he is, but we need to wait and see. As for the wide receivers here, with no Taylor, then Pittman easily becomes a wide receiver 2 for me. He is at 22. Josh Downs is at 28. I think they'll see the majority of the work as it stands right now. If Taylor does start, I will move Josh Downs down. I think he will move down into probably around about that wide receiver 38 to 40 range. Christian Kirk is at 33 for me. Brian Thomas, who's got a difficult matchup this week, he's at 37. Gabe Davis all the way down at 47. And then I actually think Evan Ingram will be back this week. All the signs pointing towards him being back. So he is currently my tight end 6 this week. So I expect him to go. You don't need to worry about the Indianapolis tight ends in this one. As for the defenses here, so I have the Colts at 14. I could make a case for moving them up a little bit if I'm truly honest, but at the moment I'm just going to leave them there. The Jacksonville Jaguars all the way down at 21. And then looking at the kickers here, Matt Gay is at 19 and Cam Little's at 20 back-to-back. So don't need to start them. Not players you definitely need to be thinking about in this game. Moving over to the next game here, and it's Patriots Dolphins, and this one's going to be tough. Patriots are favored by 1. The over-under is 36.5. I don't know what to tell you other than that's 1, not the lowest line of the week, which is shocking. And 2, this is a game that I think for fantasy purposes, you almost want no part of. There really isn't any part of this for fantasy football I want a part of. I'm not starting the quarterbacks here. Tyler Huntley's at 21 in a Superflex league. This is the one game I think you could probably get a small amount of production out of him. I've got Brissett down as my bottom starter at 28, and I actually think Drake May could probably come into this game. The tide is turning on there. I think Jacoby Brissett's time is coming to an end pretty quickly. The only fantasy asset I think you can start in this game with any real confidence here is Ramondre Stevenson at 16, and then I guess inversely, Devon Achane at 24. Both of those players are players that you can start as sort of wide receiver, as running back 2s this week. The wide receivers, I guess you're going to have to start Tyreek Hill this week. He is all the way down at 26. Jalen Waddle at 52. I don't have any New England receiver above 70. So definitely not players I'm touching this week. Hunter Henry, if you're desperate for an update on him, he is tight end 17. This is going to be a tough game, which means the defenses might be relevant here. So I have the New England Patriots at 4 and the Miami Dolphins at 8. I think they're going to be wouldn't shock me if we come out of this game and they're the 2 high scoring factions in the whole game. And then as for kickers, not much to really talk about here. Joey Sly is at 26 and Jason Sanders at 28. So again, not much to really concentrate on there. It's going to be a brutal watch. Last game of this window, last game of this video, and then we'll move on to the late slate. Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football tomorrow. And it's Commanders v Browns. Commanders are favored by 3.5. The over-under set 43.5. And that's a fair line, I think, based on what has been going on in the last few weeks so far this season. The Commanders have a dynamic offense. They've looked really, really good. As a result, Jane Daniels is my quarterback 4 this week. I feel pretty comfortable with him in that top 4 range. I have Deshaun Watson at 17. I think he'll get some joy this week. But again, I'm not necessarily sure he's going to have the most productive of weeks. Moving on to running backs this week. And this is a really interesting one with what's going on in this particular game. So Brian Robinson Jr. is questionable. If he is good to go, he will be my running back 8 overall this week. Jerome Ford will also be in my top 12. He will be at 12. I think you'll see a lot of this game put on the ground, and you'll see a lot of rushing between the two teams. Austin Eckler, if he does go, is at which I've got him at currently, is at 34. Donta Foreman at 47. I'm not touching them. If he doesn't go, then keep an eye on Jeremy McNichols. He is someone who scored a touchdown last week, and he could be fantasy relevant here. As for the wide receivers in this game, the top one here is Amari Cooper. He has a decent matchup against Benjamin St-Juste, and I actually expect him to do quite well out of that. So I have him at wide receiver 21 this week. Terry McLaurin's at wide receiver 34. Jerry Jeudy at wide receiver 41 this week. As for the tight ends, and I think you could see David Njoku back. I've got him at 15 this week. I think you could see him make an appearance, but I don't think he's going to be fully up to speed and at his highest best as of yet, but we'll see what happens. Zach Ertz is right behind him at 16. Looking at the defenses here, and I have the Cleveland Browns at 18, Washington Commanders at 17, effectively back-to-back in this game. Starting options, but better options I'm sure you can pick up off the waiver wire here. And then as it comes to the kickers, in this one. Austin Seibert is at 14, Dustin Hopkins at 15. Again, I have them back-to-back. They're both startable. They're both available options, but I'm not necessarily sure you want to back the entire house on them. And that's going to do it for the Bible for this part one. We'll be back with part two tomorrow, where we'll cover off the rest. And you can see on the screen, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see all the rankings. I've done up to wide receivers top 36, so you'll have a good snippet here, and I'll cover off the rest tomorrow, so you can view, screenshot, do whatever it is that you do with them. But good luck to all of you this week. I'll be back tomorrow with some more content. Until then, Rush Nation, don't forget, as always, it's really good to be back. Keep rushing.